Have you guys seen these tiny microphones? They're actually tiny microphones. There's literally no reason to design them like a tiny microphone, but I love that they did. Anyway, I gotta get on. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. So Radar Station, for anyone that doesn't know, is, I call it an art lounge and cinema. We do movies, which is something I'm gonna talk a lot about later, because I could use support on that. But where it's been really good is showcasing local artists, touring bands, some local music as well, open mic. We kind of open the stage to whatever. And my motto with Radar Station has always been the weirdos need art too. And that's happened kind of effortlessly, just by effortlessly. It's ironic that that word is so hard to say. But it's kind of happened automatically just by opening the doors to everybody. Like that's kind of all you need to do to welcome everybody. But like for example, right now there's a cat butt painting on the wall. That's the kind of fine art that you can find at Radar Station. So it is the weirdo stuff. Now over the years it's evolved. The original plan with Radar Station, I had a partner going into this, and we were going to do a gallery / cocktail lounge. Which how could that fail? And when we got into a building, 115 South Wenatchee Ave, we found out immediately that it was going to be trouble getting a liquor license there just due to fire egress, all the usual things you got to go through. So we found out right away we weren't going to be able to do the bars, so we had to figure out how to make money off of art in Wenatchee. It's hard to make money off art in New York City. So we knew that we would be in for some tricky stuff, but we've evolved, well, it's no longer a we thing. My partner jumped ship when things got a little wonky because she was going to run the bar, I was going to run the gallery. So along the way I've had to figure out how to chase down this bar idea, and I finally was able to get a beer and wine license. And right now I'm in the middle of a cocktail license, pushing that forward. So, but I do want to talk a little bit about the origin of Radar Station, because it was never really meant to be a thing. I started it in my house. I kicked out a really bad tenant. She'd been there for 12 years and just slowly destroyed my property, and I kicked her out, and I had to do thousands of dollars worth of repair. And once I got that apartment all fixed up, I was looking around at it, and the last thing I wanted to do was rent it out again. So I started thinking about ways I could use the space, and at that point I was making a good go at painting myself. So I thought, well, I can use it as a little gallery for my own paintings and just hang some stuff when I've got new stuff to hang. The word got out about that, and then the local press got in on it, and it was clear that people wanted it to be more than just my own gallery. And I had some very talented friends, so I just started grabbing people. It's like, you're working on some collage art, let's do a collage show next month. And I started building. So by the time we had that first opening in April of 2014 in my house, we had over 150 people come to that. I was going to be happy if 12 people outside of my immediate family showed up, honestly. I was not prepared for 150, and we counted. Like, we know that there at least 150 people came to it. So that's where it started. Then that encouraged me, and at the same time I started Radar Station magazine, which I meant to bring some, but I forgot. That's a national magazine, an international magazine actually, and I focus on more mainstream or more I guess nationally acclaimed artists. And putting them in a glossy magazine established this sense of trust, like I knew what I was doing. And they would send me their art to hang in like just some dude's house in central rural Washington. So that's how I started getting quality art outside of Wenatchee. And you know, that sort of if you build it, they will come thing happened, especially with you hanging quality art. That inspired a lot of the local artists to either get back into doing art or start making art for the first time. So that is the pool that I've been pulling from for the last 4 years with Radar Station. And as I said, now we've been doing comedy events. We've been doing just about anything you can do on stage. We just did a play read-through, which was really popular, and to a full house. So we're looking to do more small stage theater things and pursuing the cocktail license. So that's where everything is at with Radar Station right now. I don't know how close I am to 6 minutes, but I feel like it's got to be a minute and a half left. Well, going back to the challenges of finding out that we could. One thing I'm really good at is facing dead ends. I I can, I can choose a new path almost immediately. Like I don't sulk about it. I don't usually have a plan B, but I'm good at creating one on the fly. And yeah, so when we found out we couldn't do the bar, I started making magnets. And I mean like chopping wood and gluing my art prints to magnets. And believe it or not, looking back through the records, that's what paid my downtown rent for about 4 months. And then I was getting carpal tunnel from cutting the magnets, so I actually had my parents cut wood for me. It was like a family affair. So, but then that faded out, and then you go through all these cycles where people are excited about a thing, but then it's not new anymore, and then you've cycled through whoever already knows about you, and then you need those new people, and then you need the new products, and it wasn't a sustainable way of doing business. It was basically a gift shop where I was hand making everything for a while, so you could see how that could not work out so well. Then we started doing the performances even without the alcohol. So. Well, I've been thinking about this for 2 years. One thing, this is not something that I guess is necessarily an individual way of helping, but there's a strange thing that's happening in the downtown area where there's this invisible wall on Arando Street. And anybody that is south of Arando Street, we all kind of sometimes look back at the swirling hive of activity, because we'll be like, wow, it's slow downtown today, but then you'll look downtown and you'll see like literally like a swirling hive of activity. I don't know why so many people are afraid to come to the dark side on the other side of that street. But there has to be a solution there. There has to be someone, I'm sure there are people in this room that have their finger on that pulse in general. But that's been a big part of Radar Station's struggle, and now there's a new gallery in the building. My landlords have their own gallery in there, which we can talk more about in a little bit. But they're getting the same pangs that I had, where it was just kind of like, and I guess that's the typical thing, a brick and mortar situation, a boutique type situation, where you're just you turn the open sign on and you're just looking out the window like this. That was my life for 2 years. But so I knew that people were coming downtown, and I knew that they were this close. I don't know how to make them cross the street. I mean, I put my obnoxious robot signs up there, and that's how people would find me. But, that can only go so far. So that's one thing that's always coming up. That was good press. That was I don't think I'm even hung flyers for that show, honestly. It all kind of came up so in a scattershot way. But there were like 3 or 4 different press organizations that reached out to me. They were just excited that there was a new kooky art thing happening. It was about the same time that house shows, like big musicians started touring and doing house shows and small performances. I think it might have just tapped into that thing, sort of a good sense of timing. I have no plan in general, and that's been a big part of my problem. My former partner was great at planning. Like I always joked that she was really good at packing the parachute, but I was really good at jumping out of the plane. And they're both important for the overall skydiving experience, but I don't have a plan. Marissa's sitting in the front row. She can attest to this. She works with me in a lot of things, including the Comet. But no, I'm bad at that. Like, I've been terrible at it.
So repeat after me. I am good at marketing.
I am good at marketing. This does sort of feel like one of those meetings where I'm going to have to start. Painfully familiar. And I'm sorry, I forgot the second part of your question.
Well, I just had this flash of, something that would be, check out South Wenatchee Avenue, and you guys could...
reaching out to other...
Some other...
Yes, actually I did. Well, I did have an idea, and it may be stupid, but every other downtown that I know has like a SODO district. We're technically, I guess we would be considered a SODO district. I don't know. People are cynical, so maybe if Wenatchee's trying to be hip, which we are, maybe that would be a place to start if that's not already in the works. I don't know. But something, yeah, people respond to names and, like districts and boroughs and that sort of thing. We're sort of sculpted to think that way, yeah. Like a street party. We talked about doing a block party. I talked with, I'm spacing his name, the guy that does Warehouse 3. I feel bad that I'm spacing his name because I know. But he, it's also a strange block that from Arando to Yakima is mostly bank, park, and furniture stores. So there's not a lot. Most people don't belly up to a couch purchase. That's a destination place. So there's not a boutique. Yeah, we're pretty terrible at leaving our own businesses, I've found, in that district and like meeting each other. Like I don't even know those people, honestly. And that's a problem that could be easily fixed. Yeah, of course. And I think they have a little bit more traffic because of Pybus. And I love Pybus. I'm there. If I'm not at my house or at radio station, I'm at Pybus. We're usually working on the magazine. But I see the Pybus thing that's happening too. That's another, I won't say it's a battle, but that's something that needs some sort of counter. Like I'll put my signs down there where people at Pybus can see it because, again, if it's a slow day downtown, I'll go down to Pybus and there's just hundreds of people in there, and it's kind of a one-stop shop place. So that's an interesting thing to see, like all of that activity so close, but so compartmentalized that it's not quite within my fishing pole reach. I didn't have people coming to my store when it was a boutique. It was pretty slow. When I changed my business model completely, which is I don't even keep normal hours now. I was telling Stacy, I don't remember the last time I was up this early on purpose. It was probably a decade. But so I'm open now when there's an event. And I'm kind of running it more like if you think of it like a theater house or even the Pack. Like you go to the Pack for a show or a play or, and if they're not putting something on, there's really no reason to go there. Once I started doing that, people started showing up. It was just an event, but that, like I said, that's an event is a destination type situation. It's not a boutique where sometimes people walk up and they're like, what's going on in here? And they'll see that it's a burlesque show, and they'll usually stay. Well, my goal is to continue, it's working right now because I have completely changed that business model. Like I said, giving up on the boutique, it didn't really work that way for me. And I understand it's kind of a strange market on something that's maybe like in a downtown boutique space that I'm not keeping regular hours. The gallery in front of me is. But I want people to continue to come to these events and to contribute to the art. I want a bigger circle of artists because.
More events?
What's that?
More events?
Yeah, my plan is to actually be open like Wednesday through Saturday, but with an event every one of those nights. And we do an open mic on Thursday. So there will be a version of regular hours, but even those will vary because some shows will be earlier and some shows will be later. Comedy tends to happen later at night. But anyway, to answer your question, that it didn't work when I was doing it that way. It works now that I will put up a flyer that says we got a burlesque show next Saturday. Come see us. Yeah, I've been terrible at that too. I'll be honest, this whole thing got out of hand immediately. And going into it with a partner was a lot. When I had someone else helping me 50-50, it was a lot to take on. When that went away, everything got behind. And like updating my website, updating my Facebook, all of that took backseat to just keeping the lights on and like cranking things out and just doing, like literally pulling people in, focusing on booking events that kind of book themselves. Like we do have a handful of those that I don't have to do much marketing for beyond putting something up on Facebook. As to who the audience is, it's surprising to me, surprisingly eclectic. I didn't have a desire, like I didn't have some sort of goal, like I want to reach these people, other than people that were into the kooky things that I was into. You know, landscapes and animal paintings and watercolors are fine, but that was already well represented in the Valley. I wanted to represent the kooky stuff. And I wanted to bring out people that appreciated that and created it, and that is a very broad demographic. Yeah. The name came from a love for all things mid-century, retro technology, like atomic age, radar. I'm kind of just obsessed with that word.
But isn't it artwork?
Oh yeah, see, that's another thing I'm terrible at, naming things that tell you what it's about. Yeah, yeah, I do a podcast called Tales from the Space Pod. It's almost never about space. Yeah, I love names and I love logos and I can't help myself. So, but the name, yeah, the name tells you nothing about it. And I'm fine with that though. I knew that was going to be a change.
Tricky, so maybe you should just run with that, but give people a like eclectic idea.
Well, that's why I added, so now when you see the logo often, it'll say Radar Station Art Lounge and Cinema. That at least tells you what's happening. What's happening in there. And the other part of your question, the big money maker is alcohol. That's the only thing I make money on. So I have to have. What's that?
You have alcohol and beer now,
Yes.
but you didn't used to. And you're trying for cocktails.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's all. I mean, that's the only thing I make money on.
Because you have to put money on art.
No, not on a consistent basis. Well, I'll give you an example. We had a really, really good month. I don't know if you're supposed to talk numbers, but I'm not afraid to. We had a really, really good month at the gallery, which was like $6,000 worth of sales in art. That's a good month. And you get 30% of that. So, you know, you can see that the rest goes to the artist. So that's a really good month. So that gives you an idea, and you know, talking to other galleries and other artists, that's a pretty, you know, we're all on the same page.
Like, why did you have something where people came and they just like loved that art?
I wish we could always know exactly why. I don't know. I don't know why sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, if it's more publicity or if it's just the right show at the right time. I don't know why some shows sell out like that. It's just, it's making me old before my time trying to dial this stuff in, but yeah. We do rent the space out to other. In fact, for a while, that's how I was doing it, even with people that wanted to book their band at Radar Station. I would do a rental fee instead of taking a cut of the door, because it usually works out better for the artist instead of taking 30% of their door. I love bartering. I love when I meet people that are down to barter, yeah. I've only recently been thinking about hiring anybody for anything because there was no money. Like, there was no money. For 2 years, there was no money. I just got my beer and wine license in June of last year, and that started to stop the bleeding. But then I still had to do the thing where you max out a big credit card to get caught up. So I got caught up. But it was months before I was at any kind of like what I would call zero. So now I'm clawing my way back from that and starting to think of hiring someone that knows what they're doing. Yeah, absolutely.
This is the first Friday, this Friday, and it's your 5-year anniversary. I had no idea you'd been there for 5 years.
Yeah. Well, I've only been at this space for 2 or 3 years. So yeah, I started in my house 2 years prior to that. They're not buildings that people talk about, that I hear people talking about on any level. But in terms of like pioneering a path for marketing, yeah, I mean, I guess that's what everyone struggles with: what works, what doesn't, where to put your efforts and money into. I've done a little bit of everything at this point over the last few years. It's hard to know. It's hard to know when a print ad works, unless you're asking everybody, polling everyone that walks through the door. And you don't want to rely solely on Facebook, but that's kind of what I end up doing. There was another question about what has been working. And one of the things that has been working for me is staying in the weird zone, because I've had a lot of well-meaning conversations with well-meaning people telling me to mainstream my weirdness up, and maybe people don't want cat butts on the wall, and it was like, I know some people don't, but some people do. The cat butt show was the most popular and the most financially successful show Radar Station has ever done. So whenever I don't doubt the weird thing very often, but if I ever do,
Is that your $6,000 month?
no, it was better than the $6,000. Now that I could have answered. I know exactly why. It was an insanely popular show, but whenever I've had those doubts, if I've had them, I work through them and I push through them, and it's always paid off. That's the one thing that's always paid off. So that continues to be a fairly easy choice. That's one thing I really need help with, because that's my favorite thing to do. It's my favorite thing to put on the movie nights. I like being a 16-year-old and just making the popcorn and taking the tickets, even though I don't do paper tickets. But I love presenting the shows, and like I present them. I put on like a little introduction. I give like a little behind the scenes and some trivia and things to look for, and then we do like a post-film Q&A if it's that kind of movie. You can do that with Eraserhead. Wayne's World, we probably don't need an in-depth analysis of it, but I'll show that too. So I've had a hard time getting people to care about the movies as much, and it's a fun place to watch movies. So I would love to hear any suggestions on it. Yeah, I'm on the board and I'm the presenting sponsor for WenCon, yeah. It did work. We actually did that before I could do booze legally. We did private invitations, and it was successful, but none of those people come to the public ones. So you're right. That exclusivity excites people. Looks like my cup is full.